the Goodish Show. Today we're joined by Nika. She's from Epidemic, the CEO and co-founder. And we're going to discuss influencer marketing. Nika, welcome. Welcome back. So Nika, thank you so much for joining us today. I think influencer marketing is definitely a buzzword in 2021, so I think it's going to be a super interesting chat. So first, how are you? How's your day going?
Well, thanks for inviting me. My day is actually a great day, but this week, all in all, has been super intense, which is the good kind of intense, because as an entrepreneur, your worst fear is usually not having any work. So not concerned in that aspect. But yeah, otherwise, it's going to be a pretty good Friday afternoon in like 26 hours.
Perfect. Yeah, Epidemic is a really young company that has grown really fast and has become very influential in the influencer marketing industry. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your journey, about how Epidemic got started, and how you are now covering over 20, 30 different countries in 3 continents around the world?
Yeah, definitely. Love to. First of all, disclaimer, it's 20, not over 20. So yeah, we're now present in 20 countries on 3 continents, which means basically US, Canada, Australia, and then the rest is in Europe. We're as old as the actual epidemic, which is also kind of why we have this kind of at times not the best name. The thing was then that when we started Epidemic, we were like, okay, this influencer marketing, super interesting area. And we were basically observing how all the solutions in this place are divided mainly into 2 sectors. On one side, you have these digital solutions, platforms, which are in the biggest... the majority of them is completely self-service. So it's like they have the technological solution. However, they make everything under the assumption that whoever is on the other side has the time and knowledge in the area to do their own influencer marketing campaigns. And then on the other side, there are the digital agencies and similar, who usually just added influencer marketing to their service offerings. They are super skilled in everything they do, and it's really a good experience usually, but they can sometimes lack the technological aspect of the solution. So we have decided to do a combination, and we have developed a platform, our technical solution. I'm probably going to talk more about him later. His name is Anton. And then we have recruited a team of experts in the domain. So basically, it's like an agency experience, but backed by technology to enable our scalability. And we're what I wanted to say is that with the help of this platform or algorithm, we use artificial intelligence to basically find the most appropriate people on social media to represent certain brands. And in this way, you can super efficiently spread the word. So we were looking for a name which would help us show the world how fast something can spread if you place it correctly. Little did we know that this is going to be demonstrated in this way in the past almost 2 years. But we're as old as the epidemic, late 2019. That's basically the story behind it.
What an interesting concept it must have been when you were probably in quarantine working to develop this epidemic, and it must have been such a funny moment, such a oxymoron, so to say.
Yeah, for it to actually be happening. No, at first it was a huge internal joke all the time. Imagine this. And then it was could it be? And then what the F? So then we consulted a lot, like this growth hacking community, whether they believe that we should change the name. We had very strong opinions in both ways, towards yes and no. And what we have decided for is like, let's ask actually the stakeholders. So we had a lot of interviews with clients and with influencers. And what we found out was that surprisingly, and thank God, they weren't really connecting us to Epidemic, to the Epidemic. So yeah, the only response actually that we got was from one client in the US who was like, yeah, I mean, when I received your email, I usually don't open these kind of things, but I was like, either it's concerning my health or there are some guys who are really crazy. And we're like, okay, this works.
The second.
Yeah, the second.
Nice. And you also have like, you have grown your team quite a lot in the past 2 years. And if I'm not mistaken, it's a really young team that you're working with. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the average age is around 25. Our oldest member is 30. So yeah, something like that. Well, yeah, it's almost 2 years since the beginning, maybe a good year and a half. But the thing is that, like last year, actually it was 2 weeks ago, we had the anniversary from when we hired our first girl next to the founders. So our first help, Alia, she's still with us. And now we are 20 full time and almost 40 all in all, but like also with the freelancers that we're hiring in the countries where we're not as present as we should be to cover full time staff. So I was just pitching something on Tuesday, and I actually counted the clients and everything, and we figured out that geographically wise, people wise, and revenue wise, in all those aspects, we've grown over 700% in the last 12 months.
Wow, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really cool. And you, if I'm not mistaken, you make sure as well to have a person employed from each of the countries that you work for, so that you have someone that understands the language and cultural nuances, and can really like adapt the content that they're trying to create for that specific audience.
Yeah, the thing is, like, we were researching a lot what would be the best, actually, like the best combination between not going to price ineffective and not going to like way to just robotic, as in automated replies to influencers and stuff. And what we figured out is that the major factor concerning our success in collaboration, in arranging collaborations with influencers, is if we have somebody from the country. So in every country that Epidemic is present, we have somebody local who speaks to them in their own language. But maybe even more important than the language is that somebody that knows the culture. If you you can just read the chats that we have from our CMs in Serbia and in France and in Canada, and it's like completely different things going on, completely different. But it's true, like if you try to do it in one way, it just doesn't work because people aren't the same. And we also think that it's a really good addition to our team, because already here we have a team of, I don't know how many, but I think at least 5 different nationalities. So our first language in Epidemic is English, and I think that it's a really good factor. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And previously you mentioned Anton, which is your AI that helps you pick the right influencers for the right brand. And I'm sure that probably had like a big factor also in the scalability of your company, because you were just able to reach out to and have the database of everybody basically that's on social media today. So basically what I was wondering is, does your AI then also reach out to these influencers, or do you have then your employees actually reaching out personally?
Well, first of all, about the the Anton in general. If you don't mind, I will just introduce him briefly so everybody will know. Anton has a name because at some, like, he's such a crucial member of our team that at some point it just started seeming wrong that we call him algorithm or system. Basically what he does is he uses image recognition and natural language processing to classify social media profiles on Instagram. To put it like in simpler words, he interprets whatever you post by whatever is happening on the pictures or videos and correlates it with what you put in captions and bios. And this is his like primary function. However, his, I would say, like greatest edge and our competitive advantage, which allowed us to grow, as you mentioned, is the discovery feature, which helps us in a way that, unlike 99% of the solutions in this space, we don't look for influencers inside these limited communities that were pre-existing. Our playground is the entire Instagram and all the public data. So this means that when we're looking for candidates, best candidates for companies, we don't have to settle for semi-matches. We can go directly for the best of them and then try to get them to join our community. This is also the way of how, like, of our greatest, I would say, growth engine in terms of community growth. And when it comes to reaching out, and this is the place where our most advances are happening in the last months, because we're trying to exactly change now this that you just asked. So every action that employees in Epidemic are doing is getting more and more standardized until we can transform it to Anton does it, and the employees only are there then for the creative parts, for the things that the human of the future does. So think that, we need like to be smarter than your average robot. So basically right now, they're still doing the reach out messages. However, they don't have to do reminders manually anymore. We're trying to, piece by piece, we're transforming people into Anton.
Okay, yeah, so you're seeing what can be automated and trying
Exactly.
to automate that, but what needs to still have the cultural nuances is where you will use like an actual person to help out.
Exactly. And also the way how we grew was that when we began, we didn't have nothing. We were working, everything was done in Excel sheets. So there was no surge, there was no nothing. And we are now trying to make ourselves scalable in that way, because now when business grows, for the first few months, all we could do is get more people. And now we're trying to say, okay, no, let's push more into development and let's cut down on the extra people that we need to employ, because, we have huge ambitions and then we don't want to have maybe 1,000 employees. Yeah.
Perfect. And may I ask why Instagram specifically? Why not Twitter and YouTube and TikTok and so many other social media channels that are out there today?
Well, actually, we were thinking among many different channels. We're also working on TikTok, but we're specialized in Instagram. So over 90% of our revenue comes from Instagram, but we're also getting hands-on with TikTok because we're super eager to get to know it. But the biggest difference in the platforms that you just mentioned, except for Twitter, which was for us a bit, well, first of all, in Slovenia, it's not so big. And then secondly, it got a bit too political lately, and we're just trying to avoid it right now. But Instagram is super visual, which is great with actually involving products and services. And the difference between, like, for example, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram is that how many people are creators and how many people are strictly observers. On Instagram, you have some people who don't post anything, they just watch, but they are really the rare ones. Normal mortals like you and me, we post something once in a while, but you use it to look at other people and to create. So almost everybody is also a creator. With YouTube, they're like, I don't know, much less than 1%, it's like 0.00 something percent that are creators. With TikTok a bit more, but still the ratio isn't as good as on Instagram. And what we wanted to do is digitalize word of mouth. So basically bringing recommendations one level up, like nano influencers, the normal people saying, okay, I tested this, I love it, you should try it, or something completely different. But for that, you need every individual to make their own creations or posts.
Yeah, I really like the concept of digitalizing a word of mouth. I think it's a really interesting concept.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the influencers as well that you're reaching out to. So if I'm aware correctly, you don't necessarily reach out to celebrity influencers, but rather focus on micro, even nano bloggers. So micro bloggers are 3,000 followers or less, and then nano bloggers are considered 10,000 or less, if I'm not mistaken. So why did you decide to reach out to those specifically, stay away from the larger influencers and really focus on the narrower, more niche type of side of influencers?
Okay, so first I have to make a disclaimer. Nano and micro are still by far the largest part of the things we do. However, we're no longer limiting ourselves to the small influencers, because what we found out is that the size of the influencer is not like, you see articles all the time, the smaller the better, the bigger the better. I don't know, something now, 20,000 is the exact right number for the best influencers. There is no such thing as the best. In general, you need to know what your campaign goals are, and on the basis of your campaign goals, you set the optimal mixture of influencers that you should include. So yeah, in in the past year, we figured out this, and now we're working with huge ones. I don't know, we have just recently opened the German market for one brand, which included 5 girls among the biggest German influencer stars, talking millions of followers. But we're also still doing the majority of the small ones. And yeah, to maybe to answer your primary question, actually, it was kind of funny because it came completely organically. And by that time, nano influencers were not called nano influencers yet. The thing was that when we were starting, we were, beggars are not choosers. So I was just calling from company to company and trying to make influencer deals with them. So we could test, Gaspar, my co-founder, is a data analyst. So we could test what happens after each campaign. And maybe find the pattern, because influencer marketing was like a market blowing up, but with kind of a Wild West thing. You throw a couple hundred of bucks in and you wait if something will happen. And we said, okay, for sure, this is all based on technology, there must be patterns, we just need to find them. And there was this one client, completely at the beginning, maybe the second or third, that said, yeah, but we wanted to do normal influencer campaign. And they said, yeah, but we don't have, or don't want to give money for paying influencers. And we were like, what do you mean? This is how it's done, And they said no, we just can give them the tickets for this techno festival, something that we're having. And we were like, okay, we, of course, will handle something. We were not in the position where you say no. We were thinking then in the evening, and we said, okay, if we cannot get money for them, then they will not be big influencers, because big influencers will never do it without money. And then the second thing is, the product was super specific. So a techno festival, it's the best thing ever for some people. Yeah, not for me and not for many other people. It's either you love it or you hate it. So we said, okay, so this is a super specific case, because we need to find smaller influencers who will be really nichely targeted. So,
brave.
Yeah, exactly. And actually in the end we did it. We managed to find them, and the results were completely something different from all the past campaigns. Then we're like, okay, we're onto something. And this is how then we started then further pursuing this, trying out with smaller influencers, with the ones who are not officially influencers, as you become with 10K followers. And rather than going to targeted reach, to niche. And this is also one of the major reasons why we started with such a such a heavy development. Because if you have to manage 10 influencers, then you don't really need so much of a system. Well, but we manage, I don't know, like campaigns with 100, 200, 300, and you get crazy if you don't have a system, a program that tracks it all. And
Definitely. So where do you see the value between, or the ratio between quality and quantity in terms of the type of influencer that you're reaching out to? So is it better to maybe have free influencers that have over 30,000 followers, or better to have maybe 100 followers that are not actually asking for money, but maybe just like the exchange for a product or something, but you have like 100 of those smaller influencers? So where do you see like a good golden ratio there?
Well, that completely depends on what you want to do. Because if you, for example, the small ones are, if we just like think logically, the small ones are super credible. They're authentic. They're like the nanos are, your ordinary girl next door. So since she's not paid, you're not used to seeing ads on her profile, so you believe her more when she tells you a recommendation or when she shares her experience with a brand. So they're super cool for social proofing, for content creation, because they're usually very eager to collaborate, to do great content. They're super happy if you then repost them, and they will repost you back. And there's this whole circle of I don't know, just like good practices and goodwill, and they're good for this kind of things. And for example, for echo of the big ones, for helping you with targeted giveaways, with maybe, I mean, you have plenty of different things that you can do super targeted and being based on credibility and authenticity. And then you have the next round, like micros, which in our experience perform well in conversion. So, for example, you should give them promo codes, links, stuff like that. But we usually only insert them, implement them, however, use them in the second phase of the collaboration. So at first you bring the brand to Instagram with the small ones, so they organically start appearing, and it's not just like, push to conversion. And then in the next one, you try to convert those already people. Oh, I saw this. What? I can get a discount. Okay. You're basically shaping a customer journey. So yeah, and
shaping it in terms of a sales
funnel.
Yeah,
exactly. And for example, if you have, like I mentioned before, if you're opening a market for a big client, and what you need actually is a shout out, and maybe like, for example, if you are a big company entering a new market and you want to say, oh, now we're here as well, you don't need people to be credible. You just need people to see you. You're going for reach, so you're going for the biggest influencers, because all that they must do is transfer the message, So it really depends on what you want to do with them. And this is also the reason why it's really super cool to think deeper in terms of influencer marketing. I have a feeling that a belief that influencer marketing, that an injustice is done to it, because it's seen as is something so simple, banal, like you pay $100 and they tell you something, they're going to be fake anyway, but people still buy it, it honestly. But this is not it. This is like one of the deepest psychological patterns that we have, is repeating after other people. This is how we learn how to talk, how we learn how to walk. And now we have the opportunity to use this in customer journeys and these conversion funnels. And if you are able to use technology to recognize the patterns on social media and use that to your advantage, you're the king, because these are the channels of the future.
Yeah, I love that concept. So I wanted to ask you, what about the contractual side? So how do you handle the contract side? How do you make sure that the influencers actually go through with the agenda? And also, how much information do you transmit about the company and about the brand that they're working for? So do you make sure that they include the company's values and their main like unique value propositions in their pitch? Yeah.
Okay, great. I will try to answer both. If I if I again will go to sideways, please let me know. So first of all, the contracts. Well, that again depends on the size of the influencer and also a bit on the country, because different countries have different specifics, but it's mostly the size. With the small ones, we don't do collab by collab different contract. We have terms and conditions of Epidemic, and once they join our community, which is also the predisposition for being a part of our campaigns, we then send them reminders and stuff and try to keep them to make them keep their word. The thing is that as they are small, they are super eager and usually even over deliver. Of course, you always have the ones that won't do it, and no, there's really nothing that we can do to them except for say, okay, you'll be put on a blacklist now, which is usually something they don't want if they're working with a company like ours. And this is one really, I think, usually overlooked good side of working through somebody like us, because first of all, when we're reminding them less and less nicely, we're the bad guy, not the brand. And the brand can never be blamed because they have to watch over their image. And second of all, the thing is that if there is one brand and they say, okay, we'll put you on a blacklist, they say, okay, like no biggie. Honestly, there are like gazillions of other brands that I can work with. But if you're looking at the most, like the company with the most brands in this aspect in the region, then you're not gonna let them down. So yeah, we have a bit of a different negotiating power when it comes to influencers, and this is why they tend to hold on to their agreements more. And then the second question I really liked, which was finding the balance between how much information we give them and how much freedom we give them towards being creative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is something that we've been testing since the epidemic, since both epidemics, since they're happening simultaneously. So it depends a lot on the company, because some companies are super strict and they really need to. We're working with companies who give us completely like open space and you can do whatever you want, and then we're working with companies who want to see and confirm every visual. So when it comes from the company, we cannot really do a lot about it. We just make it easier for the client, so they have minimum possible work. When it's up to us, we have found this nice balance in which we give them the mood board, we transfer them the note of communication of the company, good examples that they liked, what they don't like. We're trying to give as many do's and don'ts as possible. And we equip them with terminology and knowledge, because a very great thing with smaller influencers, we're talking nano and a lot of micros here, is that they have a lot of questions from their followers, so a lot of like engagement, and they actually talk to them. They talk to each one of them because they're all important for them. But for them to be able to actually respond to all that questions, they must know the answers. So we must equip them with some knowledge in the area. So we give them as briefly as possible this basic information about the area, about the product, about the note of communication that should be done. However, we always tell them, okay, this is it that you should know, that you should pay attention to. but your profile, you were chosen because we like you, the brand likes you, we like how you communicate to your followers, and we would like to be inserted into that communication. Like, don't lose your voice, because before that I said, like, this is just another medium of communication. It is, but this one is a bit specific because in other mediums, as an advertiser, you pay a lot of money for personalization. And here you don't. You're talking directly to the audiences of people who have managed to get that audience by their way of communication. So you don't have to, it would be really, like, bluntly said, stupid to push them into your line of communication if you're talking through their channel.
Yeah, and it would hurt the influencer as well, which would probably make them less likely want to work with you, right? If they cannot put their own voice, their own spin on their creatives.
It's probably, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we're super careful with that as well. So we're also, like, really we're really strict with our own value, being we don't work with clients that we would not recommend to our friends. So, you will not get something that is complete, like, it puts you in a very weird position as an influencer who values her own profile, as she should, because she or he gathered the audience around himself.
Yeah. Exactly. And I was wondering, how do the influencers differ, or how does your strategy differ depending on the market? So how is it Germany versus the UK versus the US? Have you noticed any differences in terms of the influencers that you're talking to and communicating with?
I mean, of course, there are quite a lot of differences, honestly. About the communication directly, I cannot tell you because I don't know. Like, I should bring here like 5 CMs and they would tell you each in their own way how they communicate it through. But for example, some things that I can share with you are some markets are just harder than the other, harder in terms of how much time we spend per arranging a collaboration. For example, it's interesting, but then again, it's like very. If you would have to guess it, you probably would, because we were great in markets that are more filled with, like, temperament, because this is where recommendations work best. And for example, in markets like, for example, German market and similar Scandinavian markets, the things that work best are the ones that are really from credible brands. You should, like, you have to be very careful when you go there, because they will, in the end, Google, they don't do impulse shopping. So whatever you present to them, they will then go Google it, and then there's the next step. So this path is different. Also, it's really interesting. We love working the northern markets with eco products, with bio vegan stuff, because they react really, like, awesome to it. Then it's also interesting how the western you go, the harder it is. Basically, the US is swamped. It's like, it's swamped, and it shows. Our response rates are completely different than in the other markets. It's just harder to get there. And then again, we're this European company, not so attractive. Maybe it would be different if you would have a HQ in, I don't know, Silicon Valley, probably different. But yeah, there are a lot of differences, but this is also why we have different CMs and different key accounts that take care of, like, okay, not every market their own key account, but they know the specifics of their markets, and therefore they try to make everything better for there.
Perfect. So now I wanted to, I wanted to go for the example of, so you had a brand that reached out. They were like, okay, we're looking for, let's say, conversions. We're looking at, subscription conversions. and your AI Anton has gone through like the various list of influencers and has put forward a few influencers. Now these influencers made a couple of posts, a few stories. So now we're at the stage of reporting to your clients. So I wanted to ask, how do you actually measure the success of a campaign? Is it easy to measure, or is it quite difficult? Because does it really correlate? How do you correlate it with the regular sales already, or the campaigns, paid ad campaigns that they're already producing?
Okay, so I'm sorry to be repeating myself, but it depends a lot on the goal of the campaign. For example, a few of our most common goals are brand awareness, direct sales, IG profile growth, and user-generated content. So like they just need photos and videos, and then they usually push them forward in ads or create our online presence with them. So when it comes to starting with the easiest one, when it comes to UGC, it's very simple to measure. Basically, the number of content created is one, and the number of content approved by the client is the second step in measuring that. When the goal is brand awareness, we go for the normal one, impressions. It's basically I think that the general metric for measuring brand awareness in digital. And then the last one is sales, but I have one more. Oh yeah, when it comes to growth of certain, I don't know, IG profile or newsletter sign up or something, again, super straightforward, you know how to measure it. And the most complicated is sales. This one, it can be simple. If we get promo codes, it's quite simple. If we get swipe ups and work with the bigger ones, it's again simple. Then it also works great with referral codes. However, where it gets one example of I think that the easiest campaign and also the most fun for us to measure, because it's based on referral, was Volt. We actually came with Volt when Volt came to Slovenia, we directly started collaborating. And we are measuring, we were super intrigued in we can finally measure this, because our biggest the biggest part of our clients are these big international companies. And for example, I don't know, with Jacobs or Pampers, how will you measure how much you sold? Because they're everywhere anyway. So we couldn't really measure so much up to that campaign. And there it was really nice, because we got direct information for their ROI, which was great, by the way. We're talking about 1,500% in the first 2 months, and then we could also see what we are capable of that we cannot normally see. That's basically it. If you have basically links like UTMs or promo codes, the easiest way.
Amazing. And what about how long would you recommend working with an influencer? What is the benefits of working with an influencer for just a certain campaign and moving onwards, or versus having someone that really stays with the brand for a few years and is almost like a spokesperson for that brand?
I usually recommend that we divide this into 2 separate collaborations. One are influencers, the second one are ambassadors. And we usually make a funnel that we help the company go from influencers to ambassadors. So basically, and before you mentioned presenting our results to the client, well, as I showed you on one of our previous meetings, we have this cute dashboard that shows all the content and all the statistics to the client. And throughout the dashboard, they can also see and make favorites among the influencers in their current campaigns. And if somebody is performing for them for 2-3 months, and we see that they really like the brand and the products and everything, then we suggest the client, if they're interested, to start inviting them to become an ambassador. And this is something completely different. So we're also the messages are different, and then you can work a lot more with an ambassador, but you're losing on the reach. like it's going to be the same person over and over again, and his followers or her followers will stay the same. So it's good to have a mixture, a few of them that give you credibility, that you go with them like along the way, and then we usually exchange on these monthly social presences. We exchange up to 80% of all influencers that are a part of this campaign, and we let the best 20% stay in, and then again and again. So we're doing like this balance between credibility and reach.
Perfect. And then for these 20% that end up being brand ambassadors, would you prefer considering larger influencers, or it's more like who did the best job in the campaign?
Well, I'm sorry for saying this, but it depends, I think, because I mean, it depends a lot on the budget. Because if you want to have a big ambassador right now, I mean, it's even in the past year, it's been pretty much like tick tack, tick tack. It's like, for example, food supplements are a very good field. Everybody was like. Everybody who wanted to get somebody to promote them on social media had to hurry a lot in the last year, because almost everybody is already taken. So if you're looking for small influencers to become your ambassadors, you have more maneuvering space, and then you can ask them to do more things. And if you're talking about the big ones, it's usually hard to get them if you're not a first mover. And if you can get them, they will be more expensive. But of course, as an ambassador who will also probably provide you with content, it's good that it's a known face. It definitely doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Perfect. So I wanted to ask you now, what are some of the tips that you would give to companies that are thinking about starting influencer marketing? They're not sure whether or not do it in-house or hire an agency. What are like some tips that you would give them to like help them get started?
Well, the second question, I'm kind of biased. I think that you should hire an agency. No, just kidding. I mean, it of course depends a lot on the scope of collaborations that you're planning to do. Honestly, if you're planning to do 1, 2 influencers, maybe 3, you can do it yourself. However, I would suggest that you at least talk to somebody who's an expert in the field before. Otherwise, you're just going to be, sometimes you say, I don't have enough money to not pay money for this. So basically, I think that if you're saving money on this, you can sometimes just hurt yourself in the long run. But in general, I think up to a few influencers, you can do it yourself. If you're talking about bigger numbers, try it in a month. Call us, because this is what usually happens when companies want to do it on their own, and then they try, and then they see that it gets very, very tiring. But if in terms of startups, smaller companies, stuff like that, you want to do it yourself, be super, super careful about the numerical values, about the engagement. This is the most basic thing, the ratio of engagement to followers. Also following to followers, because if this ratio is wrong, you're probably dealing with somebody who has follow for follow, which means that their audience is not of very high quality. You also have tools online when you can check their audience, and you can also see if their followers sometimes went like this, which means that they bought them. But Maya, I can send you one slide of a presentation I had, a webinar on influencer marketing with 10 major rules. And then if anybody will be interested and will reach out, you can send it to them. It's like the 10 basic rules of do-it-yourself in influencer marketing.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you. We can put it in the chat below this video, so that anybody that wants to take a look is able to download it and have it as well.
Definitely.
Amazing. And so if a company does decide to then do it in-house, they're like, okay, you know what, I think this is the direction, this is the trajectory that we want to go into. Would you recommend having someone that's already like a marketing manager to handle that sector as well? Or would you recommend perhaps hiring someone this specifically, as it does involve quite a lot of work and day-to-day communication.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, if you have somebody that is free, and please make it a super young person, because this is only doable if you're super handy with Instagram. Otherwise, you just use like 2 times too much work. But if you have somebody available to do it, for a few influencers, this is probably the best idea. Otherwise, I think that as soon as you start hiring people, it's cheaper to outsource it, because influencer marketing really is a thing that if you do it on foot, it's super expensive in hours, but the quality is falling. And if you're doing like very small sizes, and you have somebody who very small scopes, and if you have somebody who has a few hours per week, let them do it. If you say, okay, this is working for us, and we want to increase this, well, what usually turned out for us is that the clients who hire a person then kind of figure out that they still have to buy a tool if they want that person to work well, which means that outsourcing the whole thing to somebody who has streamlined and standardized processes, it's simply cheaper and better.
Perfect. And as a final topic of our conversation, I wanted to just ask about your entrepreneurship journey. How did you get started? I believe you graduated relatively recently and went straight into entrepreneurship and created this company. So I just wanted to kind of hear a little bit about your story as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a funny question. I got it now 2 times in 2 weeks, and I've started actually thinking about it. Like, when did you decide? That's the thing. I haven't. It all just happened. Since I was little, I actually was thinking in this way. And yeah, it's true that I went into entrepreneurship right after finishing. Otherwise, I finished my master's 5 years ago at 22. But I went into my first startup company, which was not this, obviously. So that was a mobile app called Boomerang. And then after I exited from that thing, which was not a successful exit, we then later on started Epidemic. So basically, yeah, I've been in entrepreneurship since the beginning. Also, I've done some smaller projects when I was in high school and then on college. But this is, I think that this is it. Like, it's the first time that I feel it, that it's happening in the right direction, everything. Yeah.
And you also, if I'm not mistaken, you have 2 partners that you work with.
Yes.
That kind of helped to create this company as well.
Definitely. Okay, now that you pointed it out, yeah, definitely. I had so much help that, yeah, I'm always the one talking about it, and then everybody's like, how did you? And I was like, it was not me, but in Slovene, it's like, it's visible when you say you here. Yeah, it's the 3 of us. Martin, the developer, Gaspar is the data analyst, and myself, that we started all of this. Now there are many more sent as helpers as well, but the 3 of us started the thing. Yeah, Martin is Anton's dad. So he's right now the driver of our growth, for sure. And yeah, and for something else, if somebody, just in case, is listening to this and wants to start something, anything on their own, just read the Lean Startup. Because everything we did in Epidemic was completely like, we took Lean Startup as a Bible. I would totally do it again. Of course, there's a certain time in the company when you have to step out of it, but when it comes. So I would definitely recommend it to everyone. And another thing, we're always hiring. So if you see yourself as somebody who is really agile and like witty, these are maybe the 2 qualities that we value the most in Epidemic. It doesn't really matter if you have so much expertise. The thing is that you're handy and you know how to Google stuff.
Perfect. Is there anything final that you would like to add?
No, this was actually the open call for employees.
Yeah, so like then in that case, yeah, if anybody would like to work with Epidemic or work for Epidemic, they're a fast-growing company. They're amazing. They're full of young, agile people ready to take on the world. So I would definitely recommend checking their platform and reaching out to them. Nika, thank you so much.
Maya, when we'll take over the world, do you think that we should rename to Pandemic? Just kidding.
I like that. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Bye-bye.